So this is the KhoodeelaarTV television channel broadcasting only on the internet. And this is part A of the KhoodeelaarTV television channel, BabyAngelGeronimo editions. Now, BabyAngelGeronimo is the symbol, the witness. His image is on the top right of the screen. As you look on the screen, it's on the top left of my face on the screen. That's BabyAngelGeronimo, one of the simplest and most communicative images of the BabyAngelGeronimo, who is the witness. Witness to the unraveling of the crooks. Now, BabyAngelGeronimo has been lied about by the depraved DEFRA. And the lying agenda against the BabyAngelGeronimo has been backed by the congenital liar Boris Johnson. Now, this is a sample of the brazen cocks flouting the rules. Now, this is Cox, who was in post as the Attorney General who lied for Theresa May, the Brexiteering liar. This man is a Brexiteering liar. Now, anyone familiar with this program, this campaign, and the broadcasts will know of the term, the phrase that I have devised, called licensed law traders. Now, the whole legal profession is a profession for criminals and crooks that are operating on the license. They are not advocating rights. They are not advocating for justice. And they are not advocating the truth or supporting the truth. Essentially, licensed law traders, when they're lying, committing crimes, are worse than prostitutes because they're not telling the truth. They're providing lies under the cover, under the image, under the license of being in business, trading. So all the myths about lawyers standing up for rights, either through the works of fiction, those works of fiction themselves are very rare. Even the most corrupt and dishonest and opportunistic author is unable to defend the prostitutes operating as licensed law traders. So this thing about Cox carrying these two letters, QC. I mean, the QC is an additional aggravation of the outrageous assumption that a QC somehow, because they carry the letters QC after their name, are somehow morally, evidentially, ethically engaged in offering superior knowledge, superior to the others, the ordinary people. That's not the case. And as I have said before, not recently, but in the long context, one of the most high-profile, quote, members of the, quote, English judiciary in the last 100 years, of course, has been Tom Denning, also known as the Master of the Rolls. Now, all the lawyers, both in profession appearing in court, having audiences, and also sitting in posts as judges, they operate opportunistically, corruptly. And it goes without saying that all of them, including some of the diversity exhibits meaning that in terms of ethnic background, nationality background, some of the members of the licensed law trade and also of the judiciary are from African and Asian backgrounds. Even so, hardly anyone from African and Asian backgrounds or descent tells the truth when sitting as a judge or appearing before a judge. One of the fundamental defects of the English, quote, legal, quote, system, which is the corrupt legal bureaucracy, is that it's adversarial, not evidential, which is a very serious defect built in. So the idea of justice is already blocked, barred, banned, denied in the system, by the system, through the system called the English judiciary. Why am I calling it English judiciary? Although they say most things within the UK framework, most things to do with England are given the pretentious legitimacy or appearance of legitimacy by Wales being added to the English, whereas the actual origin and the source of the claim about English, things English, is based on the Little Englander mentality. This criminal, look up the definition of criminal. This criminal, look at his face. He has brazen face, and when he was in post as Attorney General, when Theresa May was in post as Prime Minister, Cox was at the center of quite a number of controversies about his behavior and his role. And Cox actually looked as brazen on the floor of the House of Commons when he appeared during those months, or during those, let's say, 2 years. Anyone who wants to know about the reason why I'm calling the English judiciary and judicial bureaucracy corrupt, dishonest, and criminal does not have to pause and wonder. They can look up. There is enough accessible materials online and in print that overwhelmingly, evidentially supports the thesis, the analysis, the view, and the finding that the English legal bureaucracy is corrupt, criminal, and racist. This criminal is called brazen, even on the front page of the Murdoch-owned and conservative supporting Times. And it says that he has been paid more than £1 million in the past 12 months to work as a lawyer for the clients, including the British Virgin Islands, in a legal inquiry started by the Foreign Office. Cox, the highest earning MP, was in the Caribbean to defend British Virgin Islands ministers in April, May, and June this year, using procedures introducing during the pandemic to cast his ballot in the Commons by proxy while abroad. Amid outrage at the arrangement, video of a hearing in September has emerged showing him participating remotely from what appears to be his Commons office. Contacted by the Times, Cox failed to deny doing his legal work from that office. The Labour Party accused him of brazenly breaking rules requiring MPs to use their taxpayer-funded offices only for parliamentary work. Downing Street, that is Boris Johnson's official headquarters, still dealing with the fallout from Boris Johnson's attempt to save Owen Paterson's career, accused Cox of failing to do his job. Boris Johnson's spokesman said he did not support an outright ban on MPs having second jobs, but that the primary work of parliamentarians should be representing the electorate, warning members of parliament that they should be visible in their constituencies. Well, it's not just the licensed law traders, such as the criminal Geoffrey Cox, but other MPs, members of parliament, all of them, 650 of them, are exempt from accounting for their behavior to the electors. So this reference to the alleged statement by Boris Johnson's cabal at number 10 Downing Street, the primary job of parliamentarians is to represent their electorate, is not substantiated by the evidence of the behavior of the crooks and opportunists and criminals and self-servers. And the other thing which the House of Commons inquiries officers confirmed is that members of parliament, once elected, are not obliged to engage with constituents, with voters in their constituencies, even with those who raise questions about what they're doing, who ask them to do certain things, who ask them for representing them on serious issues, either personally, individually, collectively, or in terms of the overall needs and interests of the particular constituency. And the Times today, Wednesday, the 10th of November 2021, has got a cartoon by Peter Brooks. And that cartoon is about cocks. Of course, Peter Brooks uses the word Sir Geoffrey. We don't. We call him the criminal, the crook, Geoffrey Cox. Now, the behavior of the depraved DEFRA and its depraved evildoer, fronter, George Injustice Eustace, in continuing to confect lies and untruths and defaming BabyAngelGeronimo. This has been going on for 4 years plus. The lying by DEFRA and lying by the DEFRA fronters in collusion with the other liars in DEFRA, wearing the kind of cover of DEFRA. These lies have been comprehensive as evidence of the extent of lying that actually dominates the whole of the UK central government department, all the departments. DEFRA is one department, and the other departments, including the so-called Ministry of Justice. Justice, of course, every time we give that noun any place in our broadcasting, is to be deemed to be used within quotation marks, not justice universal concept, but justice as the department is kind of called. The Ministry of Justice and all the other departments, including the depraved DEFRA and the degenerating deprivation, want, and poverty creation, otherwise known as DWP. These are all departments that are engaged in corruption and criminality. Criminality and corruption against the duty to deliver service. For example, the deprivation, want, and poverty creation, also known as AKA, also known as DWP, is operated in the name of the people, including the people in need of help, financial help. There used to be the department called the Social Security. The fact that the criminals changed the name of the DSS to DWP, deprivation, want and poverty creation, officially known as Department for Work and Pensions. Work and pensions, not social security. You can see the distinction. The fact that they removed social security is beyond doubt evidence of the removal of the concept of society and the concept of providing security to people in financial vulnerability and in other vulnerable positions caused by financial vulnerability, weakness, want, denial, etc. One of the items today, Wednesday, 10th of November 2021, in the Fleet Street outlets concerns the behavior of Ian Dracula Duncan Smith. Now, Ian Dracula Duncan Smith is let's see if we can find him in the Star, also known as the Scar. If it's not in the Scar, it will be in the Daily Mirror, most certainly. So if we can't find it in the Scar, we'll look for it in the Daily, let's say the Mirror. And if it's not in the Mirror, we shall look for that piece in the Guardian online, because the Guardian, in the shop, the Guardian wasn't available. We can't find the let's see if we find it in the unlikely place of the Daily Mail. So it's not in the Daily Mail, but it is somewhere. Let's check if it is in the online. We shall check online to see the reference to Ian Duncan Smith, who is on the evidence of his behavior. We call him Dracula Duncan Smith, and we shall update on that in this edition. All right, so he is accused in this Guardian online piece that's posted about 15 hours ago. And it says, Ian Duncan Smith accused of brazen conflict of interest. Now, the same word brazen as used against Jeffrey Cox. Ian Duncan Smith accused of brazen conflict of interest over £25,000 job. Ex-Tory leader chaired government task force that recommended new rules benefiting firm he was employed by. And this is a piece byline to Ben Quinn, which is dated Tuesday, the 9th of November, and posted at 1956 hours GMT on the 9th of November 2021. That's Tuesday. Now, the fact that I'm having to search for that item in the other Fleet Street papers shows this Fleet Street is hiding, shielding him, the criminal. We'll have another look at the papers that we do have. We don't have the Guardian print. The MP and former Conservative Party leader chaired the task force on innovation, growth, and regulatory reform. What a mouthful of lying, diversion, and untruth. The Task Force on Innovation, Growth, and Regulatory Reform reported back in May after Duncan Smith and two other MPs were asked by Boris Johnson to recommend ways of cutting supposed EU red tape. That's a treble lie. The fresh spotlight on moonlighting MPs has now prompted questions about the task force recommendations that alcohol-free hand sanitizers should be formally recognized as suitable for use in the UK. That's it. That's the recommendation. What an incredible, brilliant kind of innovation. And the rest of the piece is not relevant because we're talking about the lies, and those things in the piece are about other aspects, other dimensions, not immediately central to the corruption, although related to the corruption. And there are other pieces in the Guardian online, including the piece attributed to Sajid Javid that MPs shouldn't use House of Commons or parliamentary officers for other jobs. These are, let's say, this diagnosis of Fleet Street, the world exclusive diagnosis of Fleet Street. Why we call it world exclusive diagnosis of Fleet Street is quite literally world exclusive. Because, as is evident in the fact that they are not prominently showing or not showing at all the criminality of outside jobs or second jobs by young Dracula Duncan Smith, shows that they are shielding the crooks. Now, yesterday we said that Keir Starmer, criticizing Boris Johnson and using the phrase that Johnson was dragging the Conservative Party through the sewers. We said that factually that is true. Johnson was doing it, but Johnson hadn't just started doing it. Johnson had been doing it all the time, because Johnson is and was and has been a congenital liar. What he did say morally and ethically and evidentially is that Keir Starmer was not entitled to use that kind of phrase as if he, Starmer, is innocent. Starmer is a liar himself, and we shall update on the lies that Starmer has perpetrated in the context of young Dracula Duncan Smith. Now, Dracula Duncan Smith, we call him Dracula Duncan Smith because of the policy of forcing hundreds of the most vulnerable, economically most vulnerable, the poorest, and the most unwell claimants for benefit, for meager financial support administered by the DWP, deprivation, want, and poverty creation. Now, Dracula Duncan Smith was in post as the Secretary of State, that is the cabinet minister, in the name of that department for the longest number of years, since the conservative scum got the government in May 2010, due to the fact that the liar and criminal Nick Sick Clegg lied and colluded with the minority conservatives fronted by dodgy Dave Cameron, thus giving the minority conservatives the majority as a coalition. That was the liar, sick Nick Clegg. And once Dracula Duncan Smith was in post as the Secretary of State at the expense of the most vulnerable, the poorest people in the country, he embarked on an assault to destroy the lives of the most vulnerable people. and to deny access to support to millions of people in need of support, financial support. And Dracula Duncan Smith was aided and abetted by the criminal George Osborne, who was the finance minister in the dodgy Dave Cameron regime. So between them, George Osborne and Dracula Duncan Smith carried out planned massacre. There is no other expression for what happened on the evidence, on the facts. Dracula Duncan Smith and George Osborne carried out the planned massacre of some of the poorest people in the maximum kind of bracket of need, financial help. And the number of those who committed suicide is still not confirmed because of secrecy. But we can find the facts that refer to so this is the item, at least 69 suicides linked to DWP's handling of benefit claims. Now, this is a post on the Guardian website dated the 7th of February 2020. But there are other numbers. And on the 27th of February 2020, the disabilityrightsuk.org has this one. DWP destroyed reports into claimants who committed suicide. And this piece on the Independent this is a heading on the piece on the Independent website. Disgraceful surge in suicides among benefit claimants prompts condemnation of DWP. Now, this is a piece byline to Mary Bullman. Now, this piece is paywalled, so I'll read only the two paragraphs on this particular one that are accessible online on this website. Dozens of suicides of benefit claimants have been investigated by the government in recent years. It has emerged as campaigners warn of significant weaknesses in the way ministers respond to such cases. The National Audit Office, NAO, reveals ministers have investigated 69 suicides of benefit claimants since 2014 to 15, of which 21, nearly a third, were completed between April and November last year. Now, this woman, Bullman, is a part of the Mayor Bullman is part of the lying operation that aids and abets the DWP and the government generally. So this piece is not the full facts. In fact, it's only a fraction of the facts. And all the linked actions, policies that caused the massacre of the benefit claimants before that 2014 period, before that 2010 to 2014 is not counted in this particular piece. But what is happening is that the suicides are the only options left to these people who are blocked, denied benefits. And Mae Bullman was the reporter who reported on the visit in 2018, visit of the then United Nations envoy, special envoy on extreme poverty and hardship in Britain. And again, she didn't follow up. The report that she filed originally, based on the meeting held in Newham, in Kennington, with the United Nations Special Envoy chairing the meeting. And the just elected mayor of Newham, Roxana Fias, according to Mary Bullman's report, apologizing in public after a woman, a mother, a single mother, told the meeting that Newham Council's employees had denied her food and she was forced to survive on the children's drink meant for her child. So that's brazen, and no other Fleet Street paper actually reported in the same way that the Independent Online did, byline to Mary Bullman. And Keir Starmer was appointed DPP, his main period, 5-year period as the Director of Public Prosecutions, was spent during the Conservatives' first condemn coalition. We call it condemn collusion. And when he finished his 5-year term, Keir Starmer actually issued a kind of executive direction or directive saying a number of things, including the fact that claimants to benefits should be treated more harshly than they had been treated before, which means that he was raising the hurdle, the obstacle against people in the most financially vulnerable position and making it harder for them to get benefit. That is Keir Starmer. So Keir Starmer is a cruel person who belongs in the same club as Dracula Duncan Smith. Not only did Keir Starmer not object to the Conservatives punishing people for being in desperate financial need and hardship, Starmer aided and abetted them and left a legacy at the Crown Prosecution Service, where he was Director of Public Prosecution, making it harder for the most in need getting the support they needed. So the sanctions that were imposed against the most in need and most financially vulnerable people by Ian Dracula Duncan Smith, the sanction was made even worse by the addition that Keir Starmer put to the existing obstructions just before he retired as the Director of Public Prosecutions. And there is no evidence in any of the papers that they even remember what Starmer did days before he left as the Director of Public Prosecutions. So we go back to the illegality, unconstitutionality, and criminality of the behavior of the UK state in breach of the conventions, in breach of the declarations, in breach of the agreements and statements, international statements that the UK is still actively signed up to, supposedly upholding the human rights of the most vulnerable or the ordinary people. And Keir Starmer has never mentioned any of these breaches, any of the agreements, any of the obligations. When the idiot, and I say that literally on the evidence, the stupid Jeremy Corbyn was in post as the leader of the Labour Party, he repeatedly praised Keir Starmer, allegedly for Starmer's doing the forensic examination of the government's position in relation to the Brexit negotiations with the European Union. Starmer didn't do the forensic. And the fact that he didn't do the forensic as objectively defined wouldn't be obvious to Jeremy Corbyn. For the idiot Corbyn, forensic examination of the word forensic was just another trendy word that he could use, as if to frighten the less aware into thinking that forensic was something from the outer space and was beyond the reach of ordinary people or abilities. If Starmer had done the forensic, then the Brexit lies would have been exposed, but they weren't. Starmer, despite the tag being used as forensic to credit him by the idiot Jeremy Corbyn, Starmer failed during those years to impress the objective tests about forensic and the objective tests, more importantly, about the series of lies and fabrications by the peddlers of Brexit against the European Union. Now, in the Financial Times today, there is an admission on page 25, and it's trailed on the front page. Brexit chicken. UK's dangerous game with Brussels will end badly. Now we shall go into detail of that one a bit later. On the front page is a picture of migrant children, young person. And the heading to that piece is Migrant Crisis. Poland beefs up its border. And this is supposed to be the picture of a boat. A man carries a child alongside other migrants from the Middle East. And elsewhere at the Belarus-Poland border near Grondo yesterday. Poland has deployed thousands of troops to reinforce the border, where officials say between 3,000 and 4,000 migrants have gathered. The European Union has accused the regime of Belarus's autocratic leader Alexander Lukashenko of gangster behavior for luring migrants to Europe and encouraging them to enter the bloc illegally. Commission officials, that is European Union Commission officials, are considering imposing sanctions on airlines from countries including Turkey and Russia involved in what they call migrant trafficking to Belarus. Gangster behavior, page 4. So let's see the details of the gangster behavior. The Financial Times is. So that's the 5-column piece on the Financial Times, page 4. That's the main one. Gangster behavior. Belarus gangster behavior. And what it is saying is that Belarus is being accused or suspected of masterminding migrants' bid to enter bloc illegally. Now remember what this migrant thing is about. It's about the behavior of Western countries' economies in the Middle East. That's what is causing the migrants to seek sanctuaries or places in Europe. So whenever they talk about migrants, either migrants as in relation to the channel between France and England, or in the context of Belarus and Poland, let's say, they lie. These are not migrants. These people should be re-described as victims of Western imperialist and criminal interference in the countries from where these people desperately originate. In my broadcast, which I wrote and presented on Channel 4 News in January 1992, I did that on the eve of the United Nations General Assembly, which then British Prime Minister John Major was about to address in the capacity of the UK at that time being the President of the United Nations General Assembly. And my script was written after my studying John Major's planned statement at the United Nations in January 1992. Because Major was going to say that many countries either acquiring nuclear weapons or the ones that had acquired nuclear weapons already were threatening the peace of the world, and the other comments, which is absolutely true. Nuclear weapons are a threat, a serious threat to the planet itself, No doubt about that. But Major was not talking about all the nuclear weapons. He was not talking about the American arsenal. He was not talking about the Russian arsenal. He was not talking about the Chinese arsenal. Those are the three biggest arsenals of nuclear weapons on the planet. And in the foreseeable future, and this is now nearly 30 years, 29 years ago, nothing has happened to reduce the nuclear arsenal. And there is no comparable number of news items in Fleet Street about nuclear weapons as compared to the articles about migrants, about refugees, about asylum seekers. So based on the racist, imperialistic, criminal denial of Fleet Street and the criminal denial and racism by the regimes in the West, the more immediate physical resolution to that which these states actually use to frighten their electors was to deal with the fact and the reason behind and the way to solve the migrant crisis. Now, 29 years ago, there was nothing like the numbers of people leaving their countries for the West, because it was still a decade before the 21st century kind of attacks on the so-called Western targets by the so-called terrorists. And it was before the occupation of Afghanistan or Iraq by the Bush and Blair coalition. So it was more a prediction that I made than a reference to what was going on factually. I said that the concern about the migrants or people from Africa and Asia wanting to enter Western countries. Remember, I was talking in January 1992. That was going to get worse, many times worse, in the years to come if they don't, or if they didn't address the poverty and hunger and lack of democracy and so on that prompted these people to leave their countries, to want to leave their countries. And the Western societies would be best advised to help solve the problems in the countries of origin, Africa and Asia. They didn't, of course, pay any heed to what I said. But what I said 29 years ago has been vindicated every single day ever since. And everything I have said on other aspects and dimensions of policy and practice in the UK, in the USA, in Western Europe has been vindicated because I only care to tell the truth. And I only tell that which I am absolutely convinced is the truth, universal truth. So when Poland is being now kind of primed by those forces that actually flooded the UK to Brexit. Poland is now being targeted by those forces to behave. Poland is being targeted as a candidate to be propelled into a Brexit of its own. But in terms of the size of the economy and in terms of the political kind of connections, a Polish version of Brexit is not likely in the near future. But that is as far as Brexit and Brexit-like maneuvers go. But that's not the same thing with anti-migrant, racist Polish behavior. Because it is far more likely that resurgent Polish racism will more directly emerge to harm the lives and the safety of the people seeking refuge and asylum, both in Poland and in other parts of the Western European continent, if you like, Western European countries. So that's one thing. The other thing is about the COP26. I mean, Barack Obama has been given coverage by Fleet Street yesterday for his comments that actually represent the fact that not enough is being done to save the planet. That is true. What the coverage leaves out is Obama's corruption and criminality. Obama is a criminal liar who abused the many sacrifices of people who fought racism and have been fighting racism in the USA. While he was in office, he didn't do anything mentionable against racism. And the fact that his palace, his mansion, after leaving office, has been compared to being much more expensive and luxurious than the White House itself shows the corruption and the shamelessness of Barack Obama. And he didn't do anything to save the planet. And he lied, and he's lying even now. And of course, Barack Obama is not even called a congenital liar. The congenital liar, Boris Johnson, is not doing anything. And none of the Western imperialists literally assaulting the mountains in the Himalayas. The assaults on the Himalayas, the mountains, must be stopped immediately. And the assaults on other hills and mountains across the world must be stopped immediately. And the assault on not just the Amazon, but other smaller rainforests, including those in Indonesia and other parts of the world, must be stopped, but there is no mention. There is no mention of those being stopped. There is no mention whatsoever of those being stopped. And the travel by aeroplanes, no sign that they're going to stop them. And so therefore, there is no chance that COP26 will save the planet. 100 times more action needs to be taken starting now than what has been pledged. And again, Fleet Street is not accepting, recognizing that which what I'm saying. So there's a piece in the Financial Times about Benin and the artifacts that are being held in France. Benin in Africa. France has handed back 26 royal treasures and works of art looted from its former colony of Benin, in part fulfillment of a promise by Macron 4 years ago to forge a new relationship with Africa. But most of this stuff is still being held in France. So morally, materially, physically, ethically, these powers, these states, these regimes are behaving criminally against the safety of the resources of the world, the planet, and the rights of the people who most need it, and the rights of the people who have been looted, robbed. We shall be continuing, because there are lots and lots of other issues and topics. Today is the 10th of November 2021. On the 10th of November 1993, a number of things happened in East London, which I shall be elaborating on and contextually updating on and explaining the implications of in later parts.